G'day everyone. I thought I would do a vinyl tag for 2021. I've been watching quite a few of the vinyl tags that people have submitted. Very entertaining, so I thought I'd do my own one. I'm a relatively new channel, been watching a lot of the VC for years, and I thought I'd finally start my own channel. So yeah, here we go. We'll get started. I've got the questions right here, so let's get into it. A discovery in 2020. So this is a discovery for me in 2020. The band is called Undeath. They're from Rochester, New York. A very new band. They only started in 2019, and they put out this debut album this year, 2020. Sorry, last year. It's already 2021, isn't it? Last year, 2020. Came out around September. It's an old school death metal sound from a new death metal band. Absolutely perfect. The artwork with that poor fellow having troubles, you can see. Just a great sound, that early 90s death metal sound without sounding like a retro band, which is really good. I absolutely love this album. Let me just show you this, because it's on got the nice dual colour there. Yeah, that's my discovery for 2020. Undeath. Quarantine by. I'm from Perth, Western Australia, and we were pretty lucky. We only had a couple of months that were kind of quarantine lockdown, and even then, because we're so isolated here, we didn't really have it for that long. Having said that, there was some things that I bought while you're sort of stuck at home a little bit. So, of course, I went onto one of my favourite sites, High Roller Records, and I got this beast of an album. Absolutely brilliant. I love this band very much. Protector. They're an early death sound with thrash, sort of a death thrash sort of a sound. Just really savage, good hook riffs, just magnificent sound. And this is their EP, Leviathan's Desire, that I picked up off. It's a reissue that I got off High Roller Records, an absolute ripper of an album, and I'm very pleased I clicked and added to cart. Very, very good indeed. Number 3, an LP you want to find in 2021. Now, I really, really want Death Symbolic on vinyl. I've got all of Death albums on CD. I have a few on vinyl. Recently, they reissued all the Death albums for some reason except for Symbolic. Symbolic's my favourite Death album. Death is one of my top 4 metal bands of all time. I absolutely love them. All the copies that have been already, I think there was one about 10 years ago that came out, and the original are all very expensive indeed. So hopefully that gets another reissue like the other Death albums, and I can pick it up this year. Number 4, a box set. I don't have any box sets on vinyl. I do have a few box sets on CD, but I thought, no, I won't show that today. So I'll leave that as a blank. Number 5, a concept album. Now, I have quite a few concept albums on CD, not many on records, but I decided I'd pick this one. Opeth Ghost Reveries. It's a loose concept album. It's not completely all the way through a concept album, but it is a loose concept album where all the songs kind of have the same theme all the way through. An absolutely masterpiece of an album. My second favourite Opeth album after Blackwater Park. I absolutely love this record very much. It's got the perfect blend of savagery and hooks, extreme but catchy and beautiful at the same time. Michael Ackerfeld was at his perfect combination here of growls and clean vocals. And then, of course, the song Ghost of Perdition is just one of the greatest metal songs of all time. So that's Opeth Ghost Reveries as my concept album. Number 6, an album by an artist or band where they changed directions. So I chose Meshuggah and they're Destroy, Erase, Improve. This is a reissue. A lot of the earlier Meshuggah albums have been reissued, and they've been done into these really nice, wonderful gatefold reissues. They've changed the artwork as well from the original albums. Now, Meshuggah started off as a pretty much straight up thrash band. They had a little bit of groove and a little bit of progressive sound, but not a whole lot. And then this album came out, the second album, the second full length, and they really stretched their wings and started what I call extreme progressive metal. And then Thomas Harkey, of course, started to really experiment and expand his drum style to sort of form those famous offbeat syncopated rhythms that he does so well. But this is the album where they went from a thrash band to a completely different sounding band in a lot of ways, and they've continued further down that rabbit hole ever since from this album. Number 7, a white label promo. I don't have any white label promos. I hope I will get one soon one day. OG pressings are something I look for. White label promos, it's not the highest on my list. If you get them, good. If not, that's okay. But so that question's a blank. Number 8, a compilation album. Now, I thought what I would do is I would combine question 8 and question 9 together because it's the same record. So compilation album, and question 9 is an album that tells a story. So I am showing this, 1980, The Summer. Now this is a compilation album, you know those records that all used to come out in the 70s and 80s where it was just all the best songs from the year or at a certain part of the year. This is 1980, The Summer. Now the story behind this record is this is actually the first record I ever bought. I did ask my sister to buy it. I had my pocket money. It cost $6.95. I asked my sister to buy it for me from a local record store. And the main reason I asked her to buy this record is right there. You Shook Me All Night Long, AC/DC. From a very, very early age, I fell in love with hard rock and heavy metal. Very, very, very early age. The earliest music I can remember listening to was Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, King Crimson, Motorhead, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, etc. So this came out in 1980. I was 6 years old, and I asked my sister to buy it at the record store. And as you can see, you probably recognise some of the other artists and songs on there from that time. So this is a very, very much cherished record by me because it's the first physical music I ever bought in 1980. Number 10, an album that needs a vinyl pressing. So Fear Factory are in my top 4 favourite metal bands of all time. I have everything they've done completely on CD. I have a few things on vinyl. And when I was thinking about this, I had to think carefully because there are things that I want, but I had to make sure that it had never been issued on vinyl before, and I've found one, and that's Fear Factory Archetype. It's never been issued on vinyl, and it would be super, super cool to have it on vinyl. Little side fact, as I said, I live in Perth, Western Australia. Fear Factory filmed their music video for the song Cyber Waste in Perth, just south of Fremantle, and they asked all their fans in this area to turn up, and we did, and that was my 15 minutes of fame appearing in the Fear Factory Cyber Waste video. Right, so number 11, double question, a common album and an uncommon album. So common album, I've gone for this, extremely common album. I love it. I know the next 2 records after this get probably a little bit more of the critical acclaim, but I still love this record. I love putting it on and just letting it rip and enjoying it for what it is. It's so fun. Big sounds, great choruses, and the hits. I still can't get enough of White Rabbit and Somebody to Love. I know they're overplayed, but I still can't get enough of those 2 songs. So that's my common album. An uncommon album, I've gone for Shrapnel Hellbound. So this is a band that was in Perth, from Perth. They were around from 1999 to 2011. They finally released a album in 2010, which was this, Hellbound. Just a brilliant sound, a good blackened thrash sound. I'm pretty sure I got this at the gig, at one of their gigs that they were playing when they did like the album release. And just a brilliant sound. Louis Rando, who appears on this album, is quite famous in Perth because he's in probably about 15 to 20 bands that I can think of. He often even appears on bands that play outside of Australia, and he does session drum work on those. So he's a bit of a famous fellow, a top fellow as well. But there we are, Shrapnel Hellbound. This was limited to only 500 copies on release. So I'm using this as my uncommon album. What's next? Number 12, an EP. So I thought I would be a little bit cute on this, and I've gone for the Beta Band, the 3 EPs. So you get 3 EPs for one with this. Now, gatefold, as you can see. As far as I'm aware, before this reissue came out, which was 2018, this had never been pressed on vinyl before. It was only ever on CD. An absolutely brilliant album of 3 EPs that they joined together that are called them the 3 EPs, obviously. If any of you have seen the movie High Fidelity, you may remember this album that John Cusack plays in the record store. That's where I first heard it and saw it and fell in love with it ever since. And yeah, I was very happy to see this finally issued on vinyl. I do believe it was the first time it was ever issued on vinyl. So there's my EP, 3 EPs. Now, a girl group. I've got quite a few female solo artists on record. I've got a lot of girl groups on CD. So I was going to leave it, and I thought, no, I do want to show this because I really love this band, and I'd like to see them get a little bit more sort of love and so forth. So it is on CD, so I'm cheating a little bit, but it's the band Love Bites, and this album is called Electric Pentagram. This came out this year, 2020. I actually bought this from the band's website themselves. Just an absolutely brilliant band that mixes heavy metal, speed, a little bit of thrash, a little bit of power metal as well. It has the twin axe attack of Midori and Miyako that just absolutely shred, but have good heavy hook riffs in the music as well. If you want to hear one good song from there in particular that I love, one of my favourite songs of 2020 was Raise Some Hell. So there we go, that's my girl group entry. And there we go, the girl group. Number 14, an album cover you love. One came to mind instantly and I went, no, that's too obvious to just show that. Way too obvious. And I thought, well, you know what? I don't care. It is an album cover that I love. And when I bought this, I bought this brand new when it came out in 1986. Now, just to let you know, Iron Maiden is equally my favourite heavy metal band of all time. I've loved them since Killers came out in 1981. I've bought every album on its first day of release when it's come out since then. But when this came out, I remember sitting and looking at this album cover, just studying it like I had an exam on it the next day, just over and over again, just for weeks and months, looking at all the different parts to it. And of course, what I loved about it is it also followed over on the back. In fact, the back's got just as much detail as the front. Remember going through and seeing if you could find all the titles to songs and albums and references all throughout the signs on the record. It's still Derek Riggs' best work, in my opinion. And it is the album cover that I love, probably the most. Now, leading on from that, an album that you've listened to the most. So I am going to show another Iron Maiden album. I could have gone with a Bowie album. I thought about Ziggy Stardust. That's pretty close. And there's certainly been some albums in the last 15 to 20 years that I've listened to very, very, very much indeed. Fear Factory Obsolete was right up there. But simply because I bought this album on cassette when it first came out in 1984, I had it on CD when it was first available on CD. And not long ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, I got this reissue of this fantastic album. It's probably my equal favourite heavy metal album of all time, Iron Maiden, Power Slave. It would be pretty rare that I would have gone like sort of 1 or 2 weeks without at least listening to this album in some part once every 2 weeks since 1984. So I've listened to this album, definitely a masterpiece, a perfect album in my opinion. Number 16, an album you had to get an OG pressing for. So I pretty much like all genres of music and the subgenres as well. And what I like to do is I like to find, if I can, the early pioneering landmark bands. I either listened to them back then or maybe going back, listening now, sort of digging further. This band I remember a little bit when they came out. I didn't have this album back then, but I did remember them. And yet, okay, so they're not the first hip-hop band in any means, but this record here was quite a landmark album in the early days of hip-hop, and certainly bringing in that jazz hip-hop sound as well, a little bit more freeform and fusion sound as well. And so because I think it's a landmark album, it's important to me then to get an OG pressing of it. And this is on the Arista Jive label. And there we are, Houdini, Escape, an absolutely brilliant hip-hop album, one of the best ever. Number 17, the last album you purchased. So about a week ago, I took a whole lot of my mates and we did a record store tour around Perth where I took them all around all the best record stores in Perth. And this is what I bought, one of the albums that I bought on that tour. Never mind the Politics of Ecstasy. And what I didn't realise at the time is when I bought it, it's actually a limited edition. There's the gatefold. Limited edition. And so that, of course, means you get this as well. That nice orange colour. So yeah, that's the last album that I purchased. Brilliant band. Rest in peace, Warrell Dane. Fantastic album. Number 18, an album they don't get. Now, I couldn't really think of that really. I don't know. If I like something, it doesn't really worry to me whether other people get it or not. So what I went for is an album that I think is underrated in the early days of a sub-genre. And I went with the album by Cyclone Temple called I Hate Therefore I Am. So this is one of the bands that was early on in the days of what is technical thrash metal. So it's thrash, but it's got a bit more technical to it and progressive sound to it. So bands like Voivod, Toxic, and then of course later on a band like Vector often get all the credit and the name up in lights for being the technical thrash sound. But Cyclone Temple were every bit in that same group. This album is fantastic and is one of the best examples of technical thrash. So I'm showing that as underrated, but an album that they don't get, in the fact that people just didn't get it enough as far as buying the album and getting the record. Great technical thrash band from Chicago. Number 19, a punk album or the closest thing you have to it. Now, I've got a lot of punk albums on CD, not so many on record, and a lot of the punk I tend to have, I guess people would probably call post-punk, so things like Television and Talking Heads and Blondie, and I've got the Death album. I do have that Death album, but it's on CD. So I've gone with this band, High Tension, from Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. Now, this album is not punk, but they did start out as a hardcore punk band. Then it sort of moved into more of a sludge, heavy metal sound, and this is their latest album, which came out 2019, and this album is definitely sludge metal, heavy metal, a little bit of progressive metal as well, but they did start out as a hardcore punk band, so I'm including it for that. My favourite Australian metal band for sure. I'm very good friends with the lead singer Karina, and I see them whenever they come over to Perth, which usually before obviously last year was quite a lot, but there we go, that's my entry for that. High Tension, and the album is called Purge. Absolutely fantastic album. Number 20, last one, favourite 2020 reissue. And I've gone for this absolute stunning reissue. It was a little bit expensive. Granted, records can be a bit more expensive in Australia, but this reissue was $55, which is a little bit more than I've ever really paid for a record. But I had to have it. I saw it. Of course, it's the wonderful gatefold. Now, what I love about this is you're not just getting the reissue and the disc. It's the complete package. So you also get this little book in it, and it's really quite a detailed book with stories and pictures and photos. You get the 2 discs as well. Oh, sorry. No, it's only 1 disc. Sorry, I thought it was 2. It's only 1 disc, but it's so well packaged and so well put together that you really feel it's worthwhile getting the reissue and just paying that little bit more for something that's just so well put together. So that's my favourite 2020 reissue. So there we go. I don't think I missed any. Got all the questions down. There was a couple of blanks. So yeah, there's my vinyl tag of 2021. Hope you enjoyed my video. I'll definitely try and get through and watch as many of the vinyl tag 2021 videos as I can. I am a new channel, so I would appreciate some likes and some subscribes. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you soon. Thanks for watching.